The Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation know the Yarra River as Birrarung, place of mists and shadows. The land and water here continue to be a central dreaming path and instill a strong spiritual connection for Aboriginal people. The river was intrinsic to their livelihood, providing land and food that nurtured their community and culture. We acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the land in which this site is based and in which we work, and we pay our respects to their elders past and present, and that sovereignty has never been ceded. The City of Melbourne's Green Line project focuses on a 4-kilometre section of the Yarra River that runs through Melbourne's CBD, with a particular focus on the river's north bank. The history of the Green Line site can be observed in two main contexts, from a First Nations pre-invasion perspective and from a post-colonial industrial perspective. Historically, pre-settlement EVC data shows us that the ecological quality of the site was rich and diverse. This meant that it was a flourishing gathering site for different Indigenous groups, with an abundance of plants and animals all year round. Currently, a zoned area of cultural sensitivity, there are many sites of importance along the river, where the City of Melbourne have commissioned Indigenous installations to integrate cultural history into the landscape design. Post-2005 EVCs show us the detrimental impact of urbanisation on the ecological value of the site today. Colonial expansion started in 1835, when the Enterprise landed at the current site of Enterprise Park. John Batman purchased 600,000 acres of land from Indigenous people to start the settlement of Melbourne, and the initial foundations of the Hoddle Grid were laid. With the gold rush and an influx of people and money into Melbourne, the site was dramatically altered, and the land that once teemed with vegetation and wildlife was slowly and intentionally erased. Over the 18 and 1900s, the river was straightened and widened to accommodate industrial use, and the city's main railway network was constructed on the north bank. Separated from the Indigenous idea of living with the land, the river was exploited for its accessibility and became the city's industrial drain. Today, the banks of the Green Line site teem with bustling urban life. Bordering Melbourne's CBD, the site is predominantly surrounded by commercial and retail buildings and offices, with public green spaces and recreational areas linked closely to the banks of the river. Despite bordering Melbourne's CBD and busy key transport hubs, hosting several parks and recreational spaces, and linking a range of landmarks, the North Bank and Enterprise Park in particular feel underutilised and disconnected. The Enterprise Park site is bordered by busy roads, overshadowed by two noisy railway viaducts, and pedestrian crossings and access points are unclear. The Green Line site attracts a diverse mix of users, but its fragmented design limits engagement. On weekdays, it functions mainly as a transit corridor for office workers, with minimal interaction beyond brief lunch breaks in underutilised green spaces. Weekends and evenings see more tourists and local residents, yet the North Bank lacks the continuous engaging public realm of the South Bank. Narrow paths create conflicts between cyclists and pedestrians, while limited access points restrict connectivity. At a larger scale, the Yarra flows 242 kilometres from headwaters to sea, from its source in the Yarra Ranges National Park northeast of Melbourne, through the Yarra Valley and Greater Melbourne into Port Phillip Bay. The river is Melbourne's most valuable natural asset, providing 70% of Melbourne's drinking water, making its health of high importance to the city. In the CBD, the Yarra River water quality poses risk, with swimming currently illegal due to high bacterial levels and other pollutants. Water activities like boating, canoeing, rowing, paddling, and fishing are considered safe. It's common to observe rowers and boats at all times of the day. As a part of the Green Line project in 2022, 3 floating wetlands were installed along the Yarra River, like those seen at Enterprise Park. The project aims to reintroduce planting to the city and involved a strategic deployment of floating ecosystems designed to mimic natural wetlands, thereby creating a conducive habitat for various aquatic flora and fauna. In line with the City of Melbourne's Green Line Master Plan, we envisage a rich, woven green corridor that integrates place, culture, ecology, and active transport. Key concepts for our future framework include encouraging an affinity to the river and a more naturalised urban ecology by breaking barriers between the city and the water through an immersive green corridor, enhancing east-west connection along the wider Green Line project, creating a connected sense of place through intentional blending of country, culture, river, ecology, and active transport, increasing biodiversity and softening harsh edges through considered planting schemes, connecting built form to ecology in the sky through considered framing of views towards the river, delinearising the formal colonial hodl grid and challenging the rigid urban layout of the city with fluid, organic spatial arrangements that mimic natural systems and the former ecological conditions of the site. And lastly, enhancing spatial hierarchy and improving function allocation to reduce conflict and increase a sense of usability. The Green Line project presents an opportunity to reconnect Melbourne's urban core with its natural and cultural heritage. Our proposal for Enterprise Park envisions a vibrant, inclusive, and ecologically rich public space that fosters deeper connections between people, place, and the river. By prioritising cultural recognition, sustainability, and accessibility, we can transform the North Bank into a model for future urban renewal projects.